The story opens on rain-soaked streets at night, a cinematic backdrop that immediately sets a tone of tension and unpredictability. The rain serves not only as a physical element but also a metaphor for the murky moral waters the characters navigate. Neon signs flicker, casting fragmented, colorful light on puddles and wet asphalt, creating an urban chiaroscuro that reflects the duality in human nature, beauty and danger, innocence and corruption. The sleek black car that arrives at a secluded warehouse signals the entrance of Vincent Romano, a man whose reputation precedes him. His presence instantly elevates the stakes because the audience understands that someone with his notoriety is never in a place without purpose, and that purpose is rarely benign. The warehouse is a classic locus for tension. Removed from the public eye, it becomes a stage where power plays are visible only to those involved. Here, Vincent engages in a brutal negotiation with a rival gang, a moment charged with unpredictability. Violence erupts, as expected in this underworld, and the sudden death of a close associate reinforces the peril that defines Vincent's life. This opening sets the narrative rhythm. It juxtaposes calm, cinematic beauty with sudden, explosive violence, immediately gripping the audience. The viewers understand that every move in this world carries consequences, and no one is safe, not even those who appear untouchable. This scene primes the audience for suspense, moral ambiguity, and the cascading effects of violence that will ripple through the story, while establishing the protagonist as a figure of both fear and fascination. Amid the chaos, Isabella Hart emerges almost like a beacon of humanity and vulnerability. Unlike the hardened criminals around her, she is unaware of the storm her life is about to collide with. As a gentle barista, she represents the ordinary world, a stark contrast to the lethal, morally complex universe Vincent inhabits. Her presence at the scene is accidental, which heightens the tension. She becomes an unwilling witness to a crime that ties directly to Vincent's mafia operations. This introduces immediate narrative stakes, because her mere observation threatens to disrupt Vincent's controlled environment. But it's not only external danger that defines this moment. The emotional undercurrent is crucial. Vincent sees Isabella, and for the first time in the audience's view, his impenetrable exterior falters. Her innocence, her natural curiosity, and her unassuming demeanor captivate him. This is significant because it humanizes a character otherwise defined by ruthlessness. The juxtaposition of lethal business dealings with a sudden, personal emotional response adds depth to Vincent and establishes a layered protagonist. The audience is drawn in by this rare vulnerability, a crack in the armor that invites empathy without excusing his violent past. Isabella, meanwhile, oscillates between terror and intrigue. She instinctively recognizes the danger she is in, but is equally drawn to the enigmatic figure of Vincent. This blend of fear and curiosity creates immediate tension and sets the stage for a dynamic that will drive the romance and conflict throughout the story. Here, suspense and emotional investment converge, compelling readers to continue. The opening scene establishes not just characters, but their conflicting desires and moral dichotomies. Vincent's duality is central to the narrative. He is ruthless in business, capable of cold-blooded violence, yet deeply vulnerable when confronted with genuine human emotion. This contrast fuels both internal and external conflict. Internally, he must reconcile his attraction to Isabella with the brutal reality of his criminal life. Externally, her presence complicates his control over the Mafia empire, introducing vulnerability that enemies could exploit. Isabella, on the other hand, is thrust into a world she does not yet understand, forcing her to navigate fear, curiosity, and emerging attraction. The narrative purpose of this opening is multifold. It sets immediate stakes through violence and danger, establishes an emotional hook through forbidden attraction, and lays the groundwork for moral tension that will permeate the story. By blending suspense with romance, the scene captures reader attention on multiple levels, promising both adrenaline and emotional resonance. The audience is invited to question how love can exist in a world defined by power and fear, and whether innocence can survive exposure to darkness. This delicate balancing act, danger entwined with desire, ensures the story is compelling from the first page, creating a high-stakes narrative where every choice, glance, and word carries weight. It's a launchpad for exploring themes of vulnerability, morality, and the human capacity for both brutality and tenderness. Vincent Romano's life has been forged in the crucible of crime from an early age. Born into a powerful mafia family, he was taught that loyalty and fear are the currencies of survival. From childhood, he observed the cold calculations of his father, a man who wielded authority with ruthless precision, leaving a legacy of both respect and terror. Vincent internalized these lessons, mastering the art of power and intimidation, but at a personal cost, a profound sense of entrapment. While the world sees him as untouchable, a man at the apex of influence, Vincent secretly longs for an existence removed from bloodshed and moral compromise. His mother's quiet suffering adds another layer to his internal struggle. She embodies the emotional costs of their criminal empire. Her subdued pain reminds him that every act of power carries collateral damage, especially to those closest to him. This duality, the hardened exterior, and the yearning for freedom, defines Vincent's present. He carries the burden of legacy and expectation. Yet, beneath the fearsome persona lies a man grappling with identity, purpose, and a desire for redemption. By highlighting his upbringing and psychological scars, the story sets up Vincent as a multi-dimensional character. Readers are invited to understand that his violence is not simply gratuitous, but a product of environment and survival, while his longing for normalcy humanizes him. This creates anticipation for the narrative tension. How will a man so deeply entrenched in darkness reconcile with the possibility of love, connection, and moral transformation? In contrast, Isabella Hart's life is defined by resilience, compassion, and quiet ambition. Growing up in a fractured family, she quickly learned to protect her younger brother, Ethan, cultivating a sense of responsibility that shapes her moral compass. Unlike Vincent, her struggles are grounded in survival with an ordinary life, working 2 jobs to make ends meet while pursuing the dream of becoming a lawyer. Isabella embodies determination and kindness, balancing the harsh realities of her circumstances with a strong ethical foundation. Her experiences make her wary of men who wield power carelessly, which is significant because Vincent represents precisely the kind of danger she instinctively fears. Yet, her compassion allows her to see beyond superficial menace, hinting at an innate curiosity about the humanity beneath. Isabella's life is further characterized by spaces of warmth and comfort. Her modest apartment is a sanctuary amid the city's darkness, symbolizing her ability to carve out stability and hope despite adversity. By juxtaposing her background with Vincent's, the narrative sets up complementary vulnerabilities. She fears being drawn into a dangerous world, while he fears being consumed by attachment. This contrast establishes early emotional stakes, giving readers a reason to invest in their potential connection. Isabella's intelligence, moral clarity, and empathy position her as both a grounding influence and a catalyst for Vincent's possible transformation. highlighting the thematic tension between innocence and corruption, ambition and morality. The setting further amplifies the characters' contrasts and internal conflicts. The dark, rainy cityscape mirrors Vincent's internal turbulence, with mafia-controlled neighborhoods symbolizing danger, power, and moral compromise. His opulent penthouse, while luxurious, reflects isolation, showing that material success cannot fill the void left by emotional disconnect and years of living under fear. In contrast, Isabella's warm, modest apartment underscores safety, intimacy, and emotional grounding spaces she has earned through effort and integrity. The emotional stakes are intertwined with these environments. Vincent fears attachment because vulnerability could become a weapon against him, while Isabella fears danger but feels an inexplicable draw to the humanity beneath Vincent's hardened exterior. The narrative purpose of this setup is to establish vulnerability and empathy early on, by clearly presenting who these characters are, what they have endured, and the worlds they inhabit. The story prepares the audience for why their eventual connection carries weight. It frames the romance not as mere attraction, but as a profound encounter between two deeply human beings from starkly different worlds. The audience is primed to understand that every choice, glance, and interaction will carry significance, raising tension and emotional investment. This deliberate juxtaposition of character, setting, and inner conflict ensures that the story resonates beyond plot, tapping into universal themes of love, fear, redemption, and the struggle to reconcile darkness with the desire for connection. The inciting incident begins with a seemingly ordinary action that quickly escalates into life-threatening stakes. Isabella, unaware of the gravity of her accidentally records a private conversation in which Vincent is implicated in a high-profile assassination. The device, whether a phone, recorder, or camera, captures more than she intends, immediately making her a pawn in a deadly game. This single moment triggers a chain reaction, illustrating how small, accidental choices can have massive consequences in a world built on secrecy and power. The tape falls into the wrong hands, amplifying the stakes. Rival gangs see an opportunity to strike at Vincent's empire, while law enforcement views it as a key piece of evidence that could topple one of the city's most feared mafia leaders. Suddenly, the safe, predictable rhythms of both protagonists' lives are shattered. Vincent is forced to confront a reality where even his closest allies might fail him, and Isabella is thrust into danger she has never experienced before. This event establishes the story's central tension: secrecy versus exposure, trust versus betrayal. By presenting a tangible object, the tape, as the catalyst, the narrative grounds abstract moral dilemmas in a concrete, high-stakes scenario. The audience is instantly invested, understanding that the characters' survival, choices, and moral integrity are now intertwined with forces beyond their control. This moment is essential because it changes everything. The previously separate worlds of Vincent and Isabella collide, marking the start of a journey fraught with danger, ethical complexity, and emotional intensity. The fallout from the trigger event forces immediate high-stakes consequences for both characters. Vincent must protect Isabella, while simultaneously maintaining control over his empire, a delicate balancing act that exposes his vulnerability. His reputation, power, and authority are all threatened by the potential exposure of the tape, and any misstep could cost lives, including Isabella's. Vincent's dual role as protector and strategist creates narrative tension. He must navigate threats from rival gangs, possible law enforcement interventions, and internal distrust, all while keeping Isabella safe. For Isabella, the consequences are equally urgent but psychologically complex. She faces moral and legal dilemmas. Should she hand over the evidence to authorities, potentially dismantling the criminal empire she now has a stake in, or trust Vincent, a man responsible for violence, yet showing unexpected humanity? This conflict creates deep emotional tension, as her curiosity and compassion clash with instinctive fear. Her choices are fraught with ethical ambiguity, compelling readers to question what they would do in her place. The situation also accelerates the narrative pace, forcing both characters into close proximity and interdependent decision-making. The immediate danger transforms abstract character traits, loyalty, morality, courage, fear, into palpable, actionable stakes. Every decision made in this sequence has the potential to ripple outward, impacting not only the protagonists, but the city's criminal ecosystem, heightening suspense and driving the story forward. Beyond physical danger, the inciting incident sparks profound emotional tension between Vincent and Isabella. In the midst of chaos, Vincent exhibits uncharacteristic tenderness, revealing glimpses of vulnerability that contrast sharply with his ruthless persona. When he allows Isabella to hide in his penthouse, the narrative creates the first intimate moment between them, not overtly romantic, but charged with closeness and heightened emotional stakes. His warnings about life and death are both literal and symbolic, emphasizing the ever-present danger in his world while subtly signaling trust and reliance. Isabella, in turn, experiences conflicting emotions: fear of the violence surrounding her, fascination with Vincent's complexity, and a growing curiosity about the man behind the feared reputation. This emotional interplay transforms the plot from a purely suspense-driven story into one that is also deeply character-driven, where personal connection emerges amid chaos. The incident fundamentally alters the status quo, forcing the protagonists' fates to intertwine irrevocably. Their lives are no longer parallel. Each decision they make is interdependent. This convergence establishes the story's central tension, the balance between danger, morality, and desire, while laying the foundation for subsequent conflicts, plot twists, and deepening intimacy. In essence, the inciting incident is the narrative fulcrum. It reshapes both external circumstances and internal emotional landscapes, ensuring that the audience is fully invested in both the peril and the evolving relationship between Vincent and Isabella. The rising tension begins with external pressures that magnify the danger surrounding Vincent and Isabella. Rival gangs escalate their attacks, targeting both Vincent's operations and anyone connected to him, creating a pervasive sense of imminent threat. These assaults are not only physical but psychological, undermining his reputation and sowing seeds of mistrust among his associates. Vincent's empire, carefully built on intimidation and strategic alliances, is suddenly vulnerable, and every confrontation threatens to unravel years of meticulous control. Compounding the peril, Isabella's younger brother, Ethan, unknowingly jeopardizes her safety, either by revealing information or placing himself in harm's way. This adds a layer of emotional complexity. Isabella's protective instincts clash with her limited ability to shield him, forcing her to confront guilt, fear, and moral responsibility. Meanwhile, Vincent's right-hand man, Marco, grows suspicious of Isabella's intentions, questioning whether she is truly an innocent caught in a dangerous world or a potential threat to the empire. These multiple pressures create a sense of claustrophobia, as external attacks, familial risk, and internal suspicion converge, heightening suspense. the audience is drawn into a web of interlocking dangers. Understanding that the protagonist's survival depends on vigilance, trust, and strategic decisions, the narrative tension is sustained not just by physical threats, but by the intricate social dynamics and conflicting loyalties within Vincent's world. By emphasizing these escalating risks, the story ensures that danger feels omnipresent, keeping readers invested in both the external conflict and the personal stakes that bind Vincent and Isabella together. Amid the growing chaos, the personal relationship between Vincent and Isabella becomes a central arena for emotional conflict. Isabella begins to perceive cracks in Vincent's carefully maintained facade, noticing moments of kindness, guilt, and loneliness beneath his otherwise ruthless exterior. These glimpses of vulnerability intrigue her, but also create cognitive dissonance. How can a man capable of such violence also be capable of tenderness? Vincent, in turn, struggles to balance competing pressures. He must protect Isabella from physical threats while maintaining authority within his empire, controlling his temper, and navigating the growing suspicion of his associates. This balancing act manifests in unpredictable behavior. Moments of warmth and intimacy, abruptly punctuated by displays of anger or violence, keeping Isabella and the audience on edge. Their tender interactions are laden with intensity because they occur within a volatile, dangerous context. Each smile, touch, or shared confidant moment carries a weight that ordinary romance cannot replicate, reinforcing the theme that love and danger are inseparable in this world. By juxtaposing vulnerability with violence, the narrative deepens both characters' emotional complexity. Isabella is drawn to Vincent's humanity while simultaneously fearing his darker impulses, and Vincent experiences the paradox of desire and risk. These strains not only develop character depth, but also set the stage for future conflict, foreshadowing the inevitable moral and emotional dilemmas that will test their bond. The rising tension reaches a critical turning point when Isabella uncovers a dark secret: Vincent's involvement in the death of her mentor. This revelation shatters her trust, pulling her back emotionally and forcing her to reconcile her growing feelings with the reality of Vincent's violent actions. Simultaneously, Vincent's empire begins to crumble under a combination of external attacks and internal mistrust, further destabilizing his sense of control. The emotional stakes are now inseparable from the narrative stakes. Isabella's withdrawal highlights the personal consequences of Vincent's actions, while the empire's instability magnifies external danger. The story uses this dual pressure to explore themes of morality, loyalty, and the human capacity for both love and violence. By intertwining personal betrayal with the unraveling of power, the narrative ensures that every choice carries significant weight. Vincent is forced to confront the consequences of his past while navigating the immediate threats to his life and loved ones. Isabella, in turn, must decide whether to pursue justice, protect herself and her brother, or attempt to understand the complexity of a man she cannot easily categorize. This turning point amplifies suspense and deepens emotional resonance, creating a crucible in which the protagonist's characters are tested. The audience is left invested not only in the unfolding danger, but also in whether love and trust can survive amid betrayal, fear, and relentless external pressure, ensuring engagement and empathy with both central characters. The climax begins with a sudden, life-threatening escalation. The rival gang kidnaps both Isabella and her brother Ethan, using them as leverage to manipulate Vincent. This act immediately raises the stakes to their highest point, forcing Vincent into a situation where no decision is without consequence. The kidnapping is not merely a physical threat. It is a psychological assault on Vincent's control, morality, and emotional vulnerabilities. He is confronted with the cumulative weight of his past actions, recognizing that his choices, both violent and strategic, have led to this moment of extreme peril. The tension is amplified because his empire, which has been carefully built through fear, loyalty, and cunning, is now inadequate to guarantee the safety of those he cares about. The narrative focuses on Vincent's internal conflict. Should he pursue revenge, unleashing further violence and risking the lives of innocent, or seek redemption by finding a way to save Isabella and Ethan without perpetuating the cycle of bloodshed? This moment crystallizes the story's central thematic tension between power and morality. The audience is placed in Vincent's perspective, feeling the pressure of impossible choices, and is emotionally invested in how he will reconcile his violent past with the possibility of doing the right thing. The kidnapping, as a turning point, propels the narrative into its emotional and moral apex, setting the stage for revelations, confrontations, and the irreversible decisions that will define the remainder of the story. The narrative deepens in complexity with a shocking twist. Isabella reveals that she has been secretly assisting law enforcement to dismantle the Mafia, though her focus is on corruption rather than Vincent personally. This disclosure immediately shifts the emotional landscape. Vincent experiences a profound sense of betrayal, questioning whether the trust he has developed with Isabella is genuine or a manipulation. Yet, this revelation also brings an unexpected dimension of respect and admiration. He recognizes her courage, moral clarity, and willingness to act according to her ethical convictions, despite immense personal risk. The twist forces both characters to reassess their positions. Vincent must reconcile the woman he loves with the potential enemy she has been to his world, and Isabella must navigate the fallout of exposing her secret while maintaining the delicate trust necessary to survive. This moment functions as both a narrative pivot and an emotional crescendo. It highlights the story's core themes of trust, morality, and love amid danger, emphasizing that relationships in this world are never straightforward. The audience experiences a dual reaction: shock at the revelation and empathy for both characters as they confront the consequences of honesty, secrecy, and loyalty. By introducing this twist at the peak of external and internal conflict, the story ensures maximum engagement and emotional resonance, forcing characters into decisions that will irrevocably shape the conclusion. The climax reaches its emotional and narrative peak during a violent confrontation at an abandoned pier, the setting symbolizing isolation and finality. Vincent faces a critical choice: to exact revenge on the rival gang, or to spare lives and protect Isabella and Ethan. Opting for the latter, he deliberately undermines his own empire, signaling the transformative impact of love and moral responsibility on his character. This choice represents the collision of characters' deepest fears, loyalties, and desires. Vincent's decision to prioritize humanity over power challenges the very foundation of his identity as a mafia boss, revealing his capacity for redemption. Isabella, witnessing his sacrifice, experiences a mix of relief, admiration, and continued moral tension, acknowledging both the complexity of Vincent's world and the sincerity of his emotions. The confrontation blends physical violence with intense psychological and emotional stakes, ensuring that the climax is felt both externally and internally. Every action, threat, and declaration is layered with meaning. Survival, morality, and love intersect in high-stakes immediacy. The narrative purpose of this section is to deliver a shocking, emotionally charged turning point that irrevocably alters the character's trajectory by forcing Vincent and Isabella into irreversible choices. The story solidifies its thematic exploration of trust, redemption, and the intertwining of love with danger, ensuring that the audience is fully invested in both the resolution and the emotional consequences of the climax. In the resolution, Vincent Romano undergoes a profound personal transformation, stepping away from the Mafia world that has defined him for decades. His choice to abandon power and dominance represents both a literal and symbolic severing from a life steeped in violence and moral compromise. By establishing moral boundaries, Vincent begins to redefine his identity, no longer measured solely by fear and control, but by choices aligned with humanity, love, and integrity. This transition is not effortless. It requires confronting the consequences of past actions, accepting guilt, and reconciling the violence he once deemed necessary with the life he now seeks. Central to his evolution is the acknowledgement that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a strength. Allowing himself to trust Isabella and openly experience love challenges decades of ingrained habits and defenses. His willingness to expose his emotional self to another person signifies a radical shift, demonstrating that personal growth often demands risk and courage. Through this transformation, the narrative delivers a powerful message about redemption. Even those enmeshed in darkness can find a path toward light when they embrace accountability and the potential for meaningful connection. Vincent's journey from fear-driven authority to morally conscious autonomy provides a satisfying emotional arc, illustrating that true empowerment is rooted in integrity, self-awareness, and the courage to prioritize love over power. The audience witnesses a character who once wielded control as a shield, now wielding vulnerability as a tool for authentic human connection, underscoring the story's thematic resonance. Parallel to Vincent's transformation, Isabella Hart experiences her own arc of growth and empowerment. Having faced danger, ethical dilemmas, and personal loss, she emerges with increased confidence, moral clarity, and a strengthened sense of agency. Isabella's journey centers on maintaining her integrity while navigating complex systems of justice and corruption. By helping bring reform to corrupt institutions and assisting law enforcement in dismantling criminal networks, she acts decisively to protect the innocent and hold perpetrators accountable. Yet she does so without compromising her ethical standards. Her choices reflect a maturation process, balancing ambition, compassion, and strategic intelligence, protecting her younger brother, Ethan, and safeguarding her own future underscores her commitment to both family and personal autonomy. Unlike earlier points in the story, where Isabella's agency was constrained by fear and circumstance, she now operates with deliberate power, making decisions that affect not only her life, but the broader social landscape. This growth complements Vincent's transformation. While he steps away from power, she channels her influence into meaningful, constructive action. The narrative rewards her persistence, resilience, and courage, showing that moral fortitude can coexist with emotional vulnerability. By highlighting Isabella's the story reinforces the theme that empowerment is multifaceted, encompassing ethical action, personal responsibility, and the courage to make choices in alignment with one's values. The resolution also addresses the external consequences of the protagonist's transformations, providing narrative closure and emotional catharsis. Vincent's withdrawal from the Mafia power structure creates a dramatic shift. Rival factions rise, but his empire's collapse is offset by newfound personal freedom. No longer bound by fear or control, Vincent can engage with life on his own terms, experiencing connection and love without compromise. Law enforcement closes in on remaining criminal elements, ensuring that justice is served and reinforcing the story's moral framework. These external shifts mirror the internal journeys of both characters, highlighting that meaningful change often has ripple effects beyond the individual. The resolution balances personal empowerment with societal consequence, offering readers a sense of satisfaction that danger, corruption, and moral ambiguity have been addressed. By concluding with both justice and personal growth, the narrative rewards the audience with a cathartic payoff. The characters emerge stronger, wiser, and capable of building a life shaped by love, integrity, and conscious choice. The story's final beat emphasizes the enduring impact of transformation, that courage, ethical action, and emotional openness can create a future distinctly different from the past. Vincent and Isabella's arcs converge to show that love and moral clarity are achievable even in worlds defined by danger, delivering a resolution that is both emotionally resonant and thematically powerful. The emotional close begins with a quiet, intimate moment between Vincent and Isabella at a small seaside cafe, a stark contrast to the chaos and violence that defined their earlier interactions. The setting, calm waves, gentle breeze, and muted conversations in the background reflects the tranquility they have both been yearning for, creating a space for reflection and subtle, emotional resonance. There are no grand declarations or melodramatic gestures. Instead, the narrative emphasizes the small, meaningful actions that convey profound connection. The simple act of holding hands, of eyes meeting without words, encapsulates mutual understanding and shared experience. This moment is powerful because it signals that their bond has moved beyond fear, obligation, or attraction, and into a space of quiet trust. By choosing restraint and subtlety, the scene emphasizes emotional maturity. Love does not always require dramatics to be profound. The audience senses that both characters have processed their past traumas, moral dilemmas, and fears, arriving at a place where emotional presence is more significant than verbal affirmation. This understated intimacy conveys depth without overt exposition, allowing the viewers to feel the weight of their journey through gesture, expression, and shared silence. It highlights how far both characters have come from fear, distrust, and chaos to understanding, empathy, and connection, creating an emotionally satisfying bridge to closure. The moment is meditative, encouraging reflection on the personal growth and resilience each character has demonstrated, reinforcing the narrative's thematic arc that true connection often emerges in the aftermath of struggle and transformation. In this quiet moment, Vincent introduces a symbolic gesture that communicates volumes without the need for words. He quietly slips a family heirloom ring into Isabella's hand. Unlike traditional romantic symbolism associated with ownership or possession, this gesture represents trust, mutual respect, and recognition of shared history. The ring, once a symbol of family legacy and mafia power, is now recontextualized as a token of personal transformation and ethical alignment. By offering it to Isabella, Vincent signals that he values her as a partner in understanding and moral growth rather than as someone to dominate or control. Isabella's faint smile in response reflects her relief and sense of liberation. She is finally free from the pervasive fear that defined her interactions with Vincent in the past. This moment underscores the narrative's thematic emphasis on trust, vulnerability, and emotional empowerment. Symbolism is reinforced through tactile intimacy, The weight of the ring, the warmth of their hands, and the unspoken acknowledgement of shared trials. The gesture functions on multiple narrative levels. It celebrates survival, validates emotional growth, and marks the transition from fear and danger to security and mutual respect. For the audience, it provides a visually and emotionally memorable moment that encapsulates the story's journey, leaving viewers with a sense of closure that is earned through character development rather than external spectacle. The heirloom ring serves as a quiet emblem of redemption, love, and the conscious choices both characters have made to embrace vulnerability and trust. The story concludes with Isabella's reflection, either through narration or a journal entry. "He was darkness I feared, yet the only light I trusted." This line encapsulates the emotional complexity of their relationship, highlighting the duality that defined their journey: danger intertwined with affection, fear with trust, and violence with tenderness. By framing the final moment through Isabella's perspective, the narrative centers on the emotional impact of their shared experience, allowing the audience to internalize the profound transformation both characters underwent. It is bittersweet. Love endures, but it is not without costs. Both have been shaped by trauma, moral compromise, and personal loss. Yet their choices and resilience create a sense of hope and renewal. The reflective quality of this ending encourages the audience to linger on the thematic implications that trust, emotional honesty, and moral courage can emerge even from darkness, and that love is both a reward and a challenge. The seaside cafe, the held hands, and the heirloom ring converge to create a sensory, symbolic, and emotional tableau that emphasizes peace, resolution, and the quiet triumph of human connection. The narrative closes without fanfare, reinforcing that meaningful endings often manifest in subtle, intimate moments rather than grandiose gestures. The audience leaves with a sense of emotional satisfaction, having witnessed the characters' growth, moral reconciliation, and the enduring power of trust and love, while recognizing that their journey was fraught with cost, struggle, and profound personal transformation.